topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Hello and welcome to the Connected Table Live. We're your hosts, Melanie Young and David Ransom. Your insatiably curious culinary couple. We take you around the world to meet the dynamic people and fine wines, spirits, food, and hospitality who shape our amazing industry and bring it to a greater world of consumers who are learning to enjoy, taste, and explore. Our motto is eat, drink, explore, inspire. And boy, our guest hits all those marks. He could be the latest wine industry hero. And I don't think he really planned on being a hero, but he did something fairly heroic. We're talking about Victor Owen Schwartz, founder of VOS Selections, an importer of fine wines, spirits, and sakes from around the world. Started in 1987. I actually remember when he started. He had shoulder-length hair. I met him through a woman named Nancy Rubis. We're going way back. Anyway, Victor's going to join us today because we're going to talk about his commitment and passion for the company he started, which remains family-owned. His daughter Chloe works with them. But recently, and in the past year, he has been fighting to protect free trade in the wake of these emergency tariffs that the Trump administration decided to just create without any constitutional authority. The good news is, thanks to Victor Owen Schwartz, the Supreme Court ruled them down. They are gone. They are going. And all the people who were infected, the businesses who were terribly affected, many in the U.S., we are now applying to be repaid, and the tariffs are being repealed. We're going to talk about that journey with our guest, who really is the hero of the moment. He's actually been named among CNN's 12 risk takers for 2026. The list includes like Jimmy Kimmel, Elon Musk, and all these people. It's pretty damn impressive. So he's going to share his story now. Welcome to the Connected Table, Victor Owen Schwartz.
Great to be here. Good to see you, Melanie and David.
How does it feel now getting all this attention? I mean, golly.
It's in some ways out of body, in other ways just going to work every day and trying to make my business run in as you know, a very challenging market.
Yeah, quite so.
The wine industry and the beverage industry in general, the alcoholic beverage industry is not in the best shape it's ever been in. So.
No, we hear it all the time. It's tough. It's tough, and we hear it. We travel a lot. We hear it. Well, sure. And as we say, most everybody in this industry who is an entrepreneur in wine or importing or distribution, whatever, started with one passion for fine wines and food and travel. You were living in France when this came to you. Talk to us about that, just to set up why behind who you are.
I moved to France specifically to get myself involved. It was a dream to get involved in the wine business. I didn't know exactly how I was going to do it. I wrote to Stephen Spurrier, whose name has come back up again because we did another Judgment of Paris this year in New York. But he was still, at that time, very well known and really the iconoclast, the bad boy of the wine business, you know, this upstart English, then coming to Paris and opening up a wine shop and a wine bar. And like, who is this guy to do that to us French people? So I thought he was my guy. I kind of liked the way he pushed the boundaries. And I wrote to him and I said, you know, I've done various things. I was working in banking. I worked in some retail. I was managing a restaurant in the East Village here in New York. But what I really wanted to do was just get deeper into the wine business. I wasn't exactly sure. I said, oh, would you give me a job in your wine bar? Because I figured, I'll be in Paris, work in a wine bar. I'm 28 years old. Sound like a good, cool thing to do. And he wrote back to me, which people wrote letters in those days, right?
Yeah.
He said, well, if you're serious, you will not be in a city, you will be out in the vineyards. And I took his words to heart. I did go to Paris, a wonderful bookstore there, just for experience. And I felt it was one of those kind of like magical moments of the book sort of floated off the shelf, Harry Potter-like, and it was about the Rhone Valley. And from my experience working in retail here in New York, I knew Rhone was really up and coming and undiscovered. And that really has set the tone. And I did go down to the Rhone, and I lived outside of Avignon in Villeneuve-les-Avignon. Villeneuve is the town right across the Rhone River from Avignon, and a lot less expensive. That's why I was living there. And I spent my time visiting wineries and using the Livingston Learnmouth book. It's a Faber and Faber book. I don't know if it's still in print. It's an excellent book. And that was my guide, really, to start getting involved. I did spend some time. There's a Université du Vin in Suze-la-Rousse, which is a little town in the Southern Rhone. And that's really the genesis of my company. Came back with a bunch of samples. Everyone was so generous. They were giving me free wine. It was kind of crazy that they were giving me all these samples. I brought them back. The old International Wine Center was right across from City Center in those days. And long story short, they were doing a Rhone tasting. There were a lot of important journalists there, like Barbara Kafka and Terry Robards. And I just entered those wines, and they all came out very high, if not topped in their category. So I knew I was onto something. So that's the very beginning of VOS Selections.
Well, you started almost 40 years ago. The wine industry has evolved a lot, right?
Lots of different changes, yes.
What do you see? So a lot of we were going through your portfolio, and domain is throughout. Some of them have been guests on our show, or we've visited them. Cool. Commandant Vineyards, Domaine de Tourelle, Altamira Italian vodka. Yeah. We have visited Adobe Guadalupe. We have visited La Roche Moine in Center. Lovely place. Many places. A very mostly family-run or independent entrepreneurial businesses like yours, which is family-run. Yeah. I mean, we are very much in line with our suppliers, which does really tie into the whole tariff question. But certainly, I work with farmers, small producers, family-run businesses, not very much unlike what we do. Scale is a very important thing to me, and that's always something that's been consistent. Scale in terms of the size of our company, the size of the people we like to work with. I think scale is important in terms of how close you are to your business, whether you're running a distribution operation, import distribution operation like I am, or if you are making something. Can you really make quality if you're producing 10 gazillion gallons versus something where you're making 10 barrels of this and 3 of that, etc. I think the answer is pretty obvious. You really need to be hands-on, and that's the kind of thing that really attracts us. More people need to think about scale. A lot of people get into the business, whether it's as a producer or whatever, and they think about the passion and the making, but they don't realize that you got to sell the wine. You got to manage the finance. There's a lot of ick to the business.
I know people think this is such a sexy business, but I tell them no. I don't show up every day at Tuxedo and drink champagne. We move boxes. It can be that banal. We love what's in the boxes. Don't get me wrong. We don't just treat it as ordinary, whatever bottles. But we have to manage inventory. We have to manage finances, like you said. We have to manage people. We have customers. We have inventory. We have a warehouse to work with. We have truckers who don't show up on time or break things. It's no different from so many different small businesses.
And in a lot of ways, it's the same on the production side too. You're dealing with one of the most fickle crops to grow, and there's a lot of variables in that as well.
Yeah, one
on
bad
the production
weather.
side. So
Yeah, one hailstorm and you're doomed.
yeah,
Oh yeah, and climate change. This is talking about changes in our industry.
Well, so wine is complicated because you've dealt with agriculture, right?
Yeah.
You're dealing, as you talk, scale and moving a product from point A to point B, often overseas. You're dealing with lots of legalities, and you're dealing with a beverage alcohol, right?
Yeah. The government, taxes,
Yeah.
regulations,
Yeah.
regulations. Every state, every state. I know but I don't know if the people that are watching understand that every state has its own set of alcohol laws, which are very different from the state next to it. I mean, that's insane.
Well, we get approached by Europeans all the time when we go on these trips, and they're like, "Can you help us get into the United States?" I'm like,
which one?
Which one?
Exactly.
Let's start with where.
Yeah,
remember, states is plural.
got its own laws. Yeah,
I think the biggest misconception with particular overseas producers who just really want that foothold is the misperception that we are one country when we're 50.
Yeah.
And but that I see every challenge as an opportunity to create those educational opportunities to help educate and get people better understand. The other challenge, as we know, and then we'll get to the one with the Supreme Court, is that the tastes change. And right now, the wine industry is dealing with a drop in consumption, with another generation looking for other products and having many. They're like kids in a candy store with so many options right now to get their buzz.
It's funny you say that. It's exactly what I say when I'm asked that question. What's happening? People are still drinking wine. People are still drinking other things. There's never been more choice. And I think that it's not the only answer as to what's happening, but it's certainly, I think, an important one.
It's a very important one.
So you sell fine wines, spirits, sakes, and you also have a small but alcohol-free section.
Absolutely, got it very early. Again, sort of, so many things have happened to me just sort of serendipitously. I discovered my first alcohol-free product in Jancis Robinson. I was reading an article about this wonderful sparkling wine, and I just figured it was another sparkling wine, and I'm just reading it. I remember it was July of 2020. 2020, we know, was a very interesting year, right? And July, we hadn't been in the pandemic that long. Who knows what was going to happen? And I'm reading this article, and then at the end of it said, this is an alcohol-free wine. It's Naughty, which is really one of the top rated, top received, best known alcohol-free products. And I don't know, a little light bulb went off in my head. Like, maybe this is interesting. Certainly the review was so strong and so positive. I hadn't really thought about alcohol-free, to be honest. But I don't know, there was just something about it that sort of made sense in terms of demographic shifts, thinking about health is certainly an important thing, how people are thinking about that, and I remember calling my daughter, Chloe, who works with me, and it's like, what do you think about this? Is this crazy? She said, no, well, it does sound crazy, but at least let's look into it. And it's funny, I got in touch with Amanda Thompson. She's in London. I wrote to her. I found her email somewhere. And she said, when do you want to talk? You want to talk now? I mean, Amanda is like, she's on it 24/7. Yes, we had a wonderful conversation. And I said, I don't know where this is going to go. Honestly, I try to be transparent in my business dealings, but I think this is interesting. And it's funny. Initially, we were so far into the season in terms of when we were going to be able to ship and get things together and what their bottling program was. It's like, well, things aren't going to get here until maybe November. I don't know. Maybe we should wait till the new year, because I really thought my customers were going to be restaurants. I thought it was going to be all really on premise. Our initial customers tended to be retail for many years. It's only now, the last 12 months, that on premise has gotten on board with alcohol free. I mean, yes, they had alcohol free beers and they had mocktails. This is something different. What's being done now, and it keeps evolving. There are now these proxies that they're not dealcoholized, would never alcohol. Those are really fascinating. We work with one called Feral. It's all foraged products from the Dolomites in Italy, and it's mind-bending. They made these, there's 5 different ones, and they made them in conjunction with some top Michelin chefs in Italy who were looking for things that were without alcohol, but would be appropriate in a top table like that. Anyway, there's just a lot of interesting things in that category, and they're just getting better and better.
Well, there's a need. I think I read somewhere like 40% of the United States doesn't consume alcohol. I mean, it's not just health, it's religion, it's pregnancy, it's people who are going through, well, health, chemotherapy, people who are the designated driver. I'm always, I'm a wine drinker, but one of us has to be the designated driver or take a $60 cab ride every time we want to go do something.
Right. No, it's interesting. You look at the statistics, and the majority of the new alcohol-free drinkers, we call them, what we're saying is premium alcohol-free, because we want to separate ourselves from what existed before. Most of those people do also consume alcohol. So it's
it's bad in Europe, and in Italy has some of the strictest drunk driving laws.
Right, that's
Nobody's
right. So it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. But it was really interesting to me in terms of how long it took to convince restaurant somms and buyers that this was something worth looking at.
Interesting.
It's absolutely done well. And as I said, the category keeps expanding. And you can see
it saved the industry too, because with people are not consuming wine, they need to have something to consume, right?
Sure, exactly correct. You want to have a beverage besides water when you're having this wonderful meal in a restaurant. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
and it's nice that the improvisation and the research has been going to make better ones, because I know at the beginning the de-alcoholized, centrifuged alcohol-free wines, we didn't really enjoy them all that much. They're so much better now than they were a few years ago.
Yeah. I didn't like most kosher wines, but they're getting better too.
That's already happened, certainly.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't like a lot of American wines, and they got better too. So
well, you can see
any
kind of beverage product, any kind of food, right? I mean, I don't know, the first time you made, like we talked about the first pancake, right? You make something one time, okay, you got to keep working at it.
So let's talk about how you took on the Trump administration. That's, first of all, everybody was upset, and a lot of people were impacted.
Everybody
you
was
actually
upset.
Did something about it. So
everybody was talking. Like, why is not something happening? I mean, you have this administration coming into power, and I mean, they're just, I don't know, bull in a china shop, and not following the rules, the rules of our society and what's legal and not legal. And a lot of us were talking about, well, how come nobody's stepping up? It's really, that was the word on everyone's lips.
Sure.
When I got involved with the anti-tariff case, I really brought it to the attention of Ilya Somin, who's was one of the co-counsels, and the Liberty Justice Center, and they're the wonderful people that represented us. I brought it up as really a business challenge, a business issue, and a policy issue. This was something that was bad policy on the part of the government. I did not know the constitutional issues revolving around IEEPA, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, that these tariffs were used. You mentioned in your introduction that these were imposed under the pretense of there being a national emergency. That was the first untruth that was being spread. There were many untruths being spread about this. But like I said, I brought this up to Ilya Somin as something. I knew he was bringing this case. A family member who had him as a law professor many years back told me about this case being brought, and I thought, this is great, because this, all we had been talking about in the wine business was the tariffs.
Well, it's interesting because I read up on the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, EPA, and as the name implies, it authorizes the president to take necessary action in the case of an emergency threat
What was
to
the
national
emergency?
security, foreign policy, and economy of the United States. But there was none of that.
There was no emergency.
Right.
He was claiming, the administration was claiming, and I try to make this not personal because it's not. The administration was claiming that because we had a trade deficit with all these countries, that was a national emergency. Of course, we had a trade deficit with these countries for, I don't know, longer than I've been in business, probably since World War II.
Yeah.
You know, as I think it was Paul Krugman, who was a terrific economist, said, "I've got a trade deficit with my tailor. I've got a trade deficit with my local grocery store." You know, I mean, that doesn't make any sense. And there was no emergency. This was just a pretense. So
that was the constitutionality of it. But the other was,
what I learned. This was completely. These were not. It was not just bad policy. It was illegal.
And that's how it got to the Supreme Court, because at the Supreme Court, basically their main focus is to judge on the constitutionality of something. That's how they weigh. Yeah. But what you say in your manifesto at VOSSelections.com, when you talk about fighting tariffs, you say, which I think is really important, we believe in free markets, fair process, and standing up if something's wrong. What's important is that wine, and another argument is that these, the producers that you bring in, these family-owned unique wines, you can't get a French wine in the United States. You can't get a Greek wine in the United States. This is unique to that country. And to think that we're going to all drink American-made wine because we're not getting French wine was not happening. It was just only hurting. And the American wine producers were hurt as well.
Very hurt.
Yes.
It depends upon the whole national distribution system that depends upon a wide range of wines and spirits. That's how it works. So American wineries were very, very hurt by this.
And people stopped, look what happened with Canada. Decided not to, one of the biggest markets stopped ordering wine.
For many,
and
there are
spirits.
wineries I know about that sold like 90% of their output, their production to Canada, and then it disappeared overnight. Well, and farmers that were selling soybeans to China. I mean,
right. It's a lot of industries.
This is just bad for everyone. And that was my point. This is just bad business. This is not a political question. This is a business.
It's a livelihood situation.
So did you have to go testify to the big guys?
It's not the way these courts run. So the first court we brought this to was the Court of International Trade.
Okay.
An unknown court. It's a beautiful building, actually. It's right downtown amongst all the buildings, but it's kind of hidden. It's a very modern cube, right across from the main, those neoclassical buildings we think of as the courts in downtown Manhattan. The Court of International Trade is what you might say is a very geeky court. They hear these very, very technical trade issues. It turned out that was exactly the right court to bring it in, and it is why that we did so well, because filing, as I learned, I become quite an expert at all this legal stuff. But where you file is so critical. And that's why some other people that brought cases that ended up getting dismissed, like the Learning Resources case, because they were filed in the wrong venue. Liberty Justice Center, as I said, just top-notch people there. And they filed in the right place. And it's funny because after our case, this got written about, whatever, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, we're talking about how no one's ever heard of this court before. And now it's getting all this attention. So anyway, yes, I was at that court, but there at the Supreme Court, at the Federal Appeals Court, that was the second place that our case went to after we won in the Court of International Trade. We won at the Federal Appeals Court. We just kept winning. Those are courts where the plaintiffs there's nobody to testify because there's no argument about the facts of the case, as was explained to me. Everyone agreed the facts of the case are there were tariffs on the capital. There's nothing of that nature. What was being discussed was how these tariffs were imposed and were they imposed legally. That's what the case was about.
And the constitutionality of it.
Because the reality,
right.
the partial reality, at least, is that tariffs have been around for eons. So
Right.
there have always been tariffs in place one way or another. This was
Absolutely.
just an
Tariffs.
egregious show of force.
If you've read your history, tariffs are how Alexander Hamilton got us out of a real sticky situation in the founding of this country, and there was no money coming into the federal coffers because we were 13 very independent-minded states or mini countries, and there was just no money. And he came up with the idea of tariffs. So tariffs have an appropriate place in our country, but first article of the Constitution says basically no taxation without representation. All taxes are in the bailiwick of the representatives of the people of the United States.
Right.
Those representatives are in Congress. So, I mean, it was such a clear-cut thing.
Yeah.
It was really a clear-cut thing.
It's an amazing thing. So now the tariffs have been repealed and businesses
The
can-
IEPA tariffs have been repealed. There are new
Okay.
tariffs.
So very specific. Those other tariffs.
Yes.
The IE.
Well, there were already tariffs in place.
Yeah, there always
which
is. So
what
the
we were just
IE,
talking about.
okay, so the emergency tariffs. Businesses can apply through paperwork to be refunded. How complicated is that process going to be? I talked to an importer on
Well,
Wednesday
we were
who says
expecting.
it's going to be really hard. Yeah.
The government just put out the administration, I should say, put out all kinds of false concerns. I mean, scare tactics, basically.
Yeah.
It's going to be really a mess. It's going to be too complicated, et cetera, et cetera.
But it's all
None of the
papers.
above.
Yeah.
Sorry?
But the tariffs and how much was paid in tariffs is already documented on paper.
Correct.
So in reality, it should be an easy fix.
It's not documented on paper, David, so much as documented digitally.
Right. That's
Yeah.
what I mean.
Let's be clear. We're importers. We import wines and spirits. There are all kinds of importers out there bringing in all kinds of wonderful goods. There are 14,000 plus different customs and duty categories, and
Yeah.
it's truly amazing, right? The point being, when you bring something into this country, it has a category, and if you think about it as on a spreadsheet, it has a box that it goes into. You pay that for that particular product. In my case, it'll be French wine under 14% alcohol, and that has a box. And the Customs and Border Protection, CBP, they're the ones that collect our monies. They know exactly where it went. It's just like when you pay taxes. They know that David Ransom paid his taxes in the state of wherever, Wyoming, and if they had a refund, they're going to send it back there. It's all digital. They knew where it was going. I knew this was not going to be a problem. And the fact is, it hasn't been. 2 months to the day, we won in the Supreme Court on February 20th. On April 20th, the CBP had their portal open. 2 months,
Wow.
which was promised to be years of a messy litigation and time-consuming blah, blah, blah. The judge at the Court of International Trade, where the case was sent back to by the Supreme Court, they said, nope, these tariffs are illegal. It's going to go back to the original court that ruled on this. Judge Easton there, he brought the government in and said, okay, guys, stop slow walking this. These tariffs under IEPA were considered illegal. You need to give the money back. There's no question about it, right? It was paid, it was taken illegally. You give it back to the people that paid it. Very, very clear. The CBP, I listened to the hearings. The CBP said, fair enough, we can figure this out. The problem is, in the past, anytime there was a refund, it was done manually. It's like, we can't do that. There is I think it was something like 1.7 million entries in that year's time. The challenge is the number of entries, not the ability to find out what they were. They knew exactly what the monies paid were. We have to create a program, a computer program. Okay, well, businesses do this every day. It's not a big deal. And they did it. And the judge was great because he checked up on CBP. Every week or 2 weeks, they had to report back to the judge with their progress. And I kept reading about the progress. Like, CBP would say, well, we're 40% done with our program. Oh, we're 60% done. And I'm thinking to myself, this is this is too good to be true. They're not going to get done that fast. I thought sometime in the summer they'll have the program back altogether, Nope, 2 months, done. With the portal open, very clear, very easy to find what we paid. It was comprehensive. I could look at all the way back to the beginning of my company to see all of the tariffs I ever paid. It's not just tariffs, all the customs and duty, which we continue paying. I want to be very clear about that. We had to pay the customs and duty like we always paid, plus the tariffs on top of that.
Well, you don't
so
get
we
the
saw
wine.
everything,
You don't get
and
the
then-
wine release until you pay the taxes
Right.
on it. So you had to.
Well, we
Yeah.
saw everything. The CBP was very clear what they wanted. We sent it in. There was a couple of our entries that got knocked out for some kind of technical reasons. I don't know why. But, the majority of it was there. It was easy to find. It was accepted. Now we just wait up to 3 months. It'll probably take at least that long to get the refund.
Well, hopefully
Well,
businesses
we're-
who are
we're
struggling to
direct-
stay in business, because a lot of businesses were really like struggling to the point of
We all are.
disintegrating.
Oh, we all are. Oh, it is. This is something that's so important. This is not a windfall. I mean,
Right.
we're all hurting. Well, not only we're hurting, our supplier partners overseas are hurting too. They've been incredible support system for us, and probably for a lot of importers. The relationships, the personal relationships that we have with our suppliers, is critical for having gotten us through. And it got us through the tariffs 1.0 in 2019, and it's helped get us through this time too. But it hasn't been good for them. This is not good for business. I mean, we had to contract through the byword of the imposition of these tariffs.
So in 3 months, what's going to happen on the consumer end? That's one of the questions I have. Are consumers
Sure.
going to see a
No.
retraction
I
in prices?
hate to be so glib about it, but the truth is, in any of these situations with bad policies on the part of the government, it's at the end of the day, the consumer is left holding the bag, and they're the ones that really got burned on this.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, I mean, obviously, I was following this very carefully. Consumers are not impacted at the beginning, so a lot of consumers, plus what they were hearing, the falsehoods being told by the administration, such as foreign entities will be paying tariffs, completely false, right?
Totally.
I pay the tariffs. American businesses pay the tax. Their taxes. They were illegal taxes that we were paying. Right out. Consumers did not see it. They said, "Oh, gas prices look fine. Avocados not too expensive." This kind of thing. It didn't go up into the new year. Prices started going up. They're still going up. It takes, study economics. There's a lag time. It takes some time for things to move through the supply chain.
Right.
Plus,
Well, I think
our prices, like across the board, we have inventory, and we're selling into a diminished market. We raise prices 5 or 6% at the get-go, only on newly imported products. Anything that was already in stock, we kept selling at the same pre-tariff pricing. Our goal is to help our customers. That's our number one goal. That if we don't do that, we don't exist. I don't make wine. I'm not a producer. They don't need me unless I'm providing a really great service. And that service is taking care of our customers, our stores, our restaurants, bars, clubs, etc. We have to take good care of them. And if they're having a hard time, what can we do to help them? Certainly not raise prices. If we don't, to the degree we have to. But we had to increase the prices somewhat. And we've had to do it more than one time as tariffs changed, as the impact became more, eventful for us. We're trying to stay in business, as anybody would be. But yes, it's been terribly impactful for our industry, for businesses. So those refunds will get immediately put back into the pool. They will be paying suppliers. They'll be paying the new tariffs, which it will exist, and we can talk a little bit about that. But it's not a windfall. I'm not booking a Caribbean vacation with that money. I'll tell you
What
that.
new tariffs are you referring to?
Well, on February 20th, when we won at the Supreme Court, the administration came right out and said, well, you think you're getting away with that? No, you're not. We've got new tariffs for you. There's another statute, 122, I think is what it's called, and it allows them to put tariffs on under a different pretense, and that's a balance of payments problem, not balance of trade, balance of payments. There's no balance of payments problem because we pay all of our foreign entities that we need to pay. There's no shortage of dollars or issues with the Treasury Department. Again, this was another statute. I think it also came out of the 70s, like IEPA, maybe even earlier than IEPA. I think it's 74, in which this statute was created not about tariffs. It allows them to put tariffs on, but it's about the payments issue. There's no payments issue. In this case, this statute was also being challenged in court. The big difference with this statute, and we are paying 10% tariffs now, is that there's a limit on it. And that's the key difference. And these are set to expire in July, at which point the administration has to go before Congress, like it was supposed to do the first time around, and ask for an extension. I'm of the strong belief, after what we created by winning 3 times the payment cost, I think a lot of businesses, and I think legislators in Congress, see that this is not a popular program, to say the least. I think it'd be very hard-pressed, Melanie and David, to have a pro-tariff business person on your podcast. If you do that, you will really
especially with gas where it is now.
It's great.
Yeah. Well, it seems like the legislation's going to hit right when everybody's getting ready to go on vacation.
It's very interesting to see what happens in July.
Yeah,
Recess. I mean, industry shuts down the last 2 weeks of July. Congress goes into recess.
You know what? If the administration does not get the go-ahead, then the tariffs will just end it.
Yeah.
There's yet another statute that they're looking at, and they have to do these investigations, and it's an industry by industry thing. The point is that you cannot just across the board put these kinds of tariffs on like the administration did with IEPA, claiming an emergency. And there was no emergency. And you can't just put tariffs on across the board because you feel like it gives you good leverage from a foreign policy perspective and this kind of thing. There are other ways to do that. Tariffs are not that. And the fact is, it's bad and unhealthy for us.
The word punitive keeps coming up in my head because you're punishing businesses for just doing their job.
Why? And that's good. I mean, you can't spell punish without punitive. So why is this administration so hell-bent on punishing small American businesses?
Right.
I can't figure that.
I can't figure it out either. We were supposed to be making America so fabulous and great again. We're punishing all the businesses that are making America great. So it didn't make sense.
I said, this is a contractionary thing, not an expansion. Yeah. This is not about business expansion.
So we're curious. You think you were now like activists and chief, you've got this big role.
Yeah.
Are you going to ease back into just running, not just going back to running VOS Selections?
Melanie, I was not taking a 1-year vacation from running my company. I just had a new job.
Luckily, got a new volunteer job.
Right, now you have 2 jobs.
Yes, I mean, it was a lot of job. But I have a great team around me, and we're extremely helpful. Luckily, my daughter has come on board. She's now the vice president, and 7 years, and she's been at 3 harvests. I mean, she really knows her way around the industry. I guess it's in her blood, and she's incredibly helpful. But I've got great management team. We've got great sales reps, and really great partners. That's really such an important aspect.
What's the relationship?
So yes, so now I'm glad I'm back full time.
You're a star now. I mean, you really a hero and a star, and it's great because you also set an example for people, not only in the wine industry who are just sitting there. I always say too many people in the wine industry are staring at their neighbor complaining. Do something. Don't just complain. Do something, damn it. But I feel that way about all businesses.
And thank you for saying such nice things about me. But really, it was just one of those, as I said, kind of serendipity. Here I was this case was brought to me to get involved in, and then asked to be the lead plaintiff on it. It was just, it was a massive decision. It was over a weekend. And of course, I spoke to my family and to friends, to lawyers that I know. I know somebody in the AG's office here in New York. It felt very big and very scary. But also, it's like something, it's like when fate comes to your door. I don't know, it almost sounds biblical, It's like something shows up. What are you going to do? It was a moment in time, and just something had to be done. And for whatever reason, there I was. So I was the person to do it, and I was glad to do it eventually. Scared at first, but it all worked out very well.
Well, you do say on your website you believe in loyalty, trust, and fearless importing. Fearless part resonated with me.
Well, at first, fearless importing was like finding these, off the beaten path wines and spirits, from little family farms that no one's heard of. I didn't think, really, at that time, I didn't start the company thinking I was going to be suing the government for anything, and certainly not the most powerful politician on the planet. These are not things you think of when you start a company. You just want to find really great
you had to do something to save your business, save the industry, save your producers, your suppliers who were being deeply impacted, your family, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the opportunity was there for me to do something. So if that happened, for me, there was no question. I had to do it.
I think people listening and watching who don't work in the wine industry need to understand that when you are an importer, it is about developing incredible relationships with people who may have never even come to the United States. But you're talking about, in some cases, dirt under the finger farmers who are relying, they put their trust in you. It is a matter of trust. And it is like being a family. And it's so important. So you really had to think about that because your family was being
You're right, Mel. It's like they are our suppliers, still our supporting family. There's a very strong connection.
Yeah, and you couldn't feel helpless. And here you are on the other side of the pond, dealing with this craziness and having to explain it to your family members, suppliers, so they can even understand. Like, I had to go back and reread the whole thing a couple of times about, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. They're just like, how are we going to survive,
Yeah, it's really crazy.
Yeah.
But
congratulations on a successful outcome to a lot of hard work.
Thank you. We were on the side of right, and we won, and that is a great thing.
So I have a lighthearted question. What wine did you pop the night that the verdict came down?
It was actually the next night because that night I had tickets for the ballet. But it was a Chateau de Pop from an old supplier of mine. In fact, I worked with the daughter of the gentleman I started with. It was Domaine du Banneret. It's a small property, very, very small property in an old family property. They date themselves back like the 1500s. Interesting. They have very old varietals that are interplanted. So, Chateau de Pop has 13 different varietals they're allowed to use. They have all 13. But these are ancient clones in their vineyard, and they're interplanted, one after the other, not the typical kind of block planting that you have.
True field blend.
Really a fantastic thing. And, it's one of my favorite wines, and it ages beautifully. So we opened an old bottle of Domaine du Banneret.
It tasted extra special then.
Yeah.
Those are my dad's favorite wines.
Yes, we all love rum.
He used to always say to me when I was a little girl, he was an educator and fun, and he'd say, when in doubt in a restaurant, go to them.
It's one of the secrets, no question. Chateau de Pop is absolutely a go-to. You're going to get some, if you don't know anything about it and you're traveling and you don't know where you might be, you see Chateau de Pop, you'll probably do okay.
The best.
At minimum, or something really astounding. And it'll be reasonably priced.
That too.
Well, we would be celebrating with that too.
Very good.
It's good to hear. Well, hopefully you'll have more celebrations to come. You're going to be celebrating in 2027, 40 years of business. Like I said, I remember when you started, you had shoulder repair, I swear. Did you used to have shoulder repair?
Yeah.
Yeah. Nancy Lugas, she's with a zero. That's how I met you. long, 40 years ago. Thank you, Lisa. So congratulations on milestones and memories and making a difference in this industry. Victor Owen Schwartz, thank you. VOSSelections.com if you want to see what amazing wines, spirits, sakes, and alcohol-free selections are carried by this company, which is based in New York State. So thank you again. You've been listening to The Next Table with Melanie Young and David Ransom and Victor Owen Schwartz. We hope this inspired you. We hope you'll go out and try something new. Step outside your wine-sipping comfort zone, and always remember that you should be eating, drinking, exploring, and inspiring others to do the same. This is an important industry to our economy, to our agriculture, to our system, and we want to thank people like Victor for upholding it and making sure that it's running as smooth as it can. Thank you very much, and always stay insatiably curious.